it's worth kind of understanding a little bit about going a bit deeper into why disagreement is so productive when it's done right. And the essential reason is that human intelligence is interactive. Now, we're all capable of being intelligent and thinking on our own, but actually, we do our best thinking in collaboration with others. Thinking and reasoning are inherently social activities, something we kind of lost sight of in recent years. There's a greater emphasis on the individual. But somebody who understood this very well was Socrates. So Socrates, as you may know, he didn't write anything down. The only reason we know about Socrates' ideas is that Plato and some of his other contemporaries wrote down what Socrates talked about, and we've been handed down since then. Now, why didn't he write anything down? Well, writing was a relatively new technology at the time. So Socrates, writing was a bit like an iPhone to a 70-year-old man. It was a bit like, wow, this newfangled stuff. I don't really need writing. But there was this sort of deeper reason he didn't like it, which was it couldn't talk back to him. It couldn't disagree with him. He would write down his view, and he'd wait, and there was just nothing. And so he kind of gave up on this, and he said, no, what I really enjoy doing is the way I think is sitting down with groups of people, let's face it, men at the time, and hashing this stuff out and putting forth opinions, seeing what the counter-argument is, shifting my opinion accordingly, coming back with another argument. That's how we should do, that's how we think, right? That's how I think. And there's now a kind of a powerful case from cognitive psychology and evolutionary psychology, which I won't go into, which well, maybe I will, which is basically that this is actually why we're designed to have this kind of, we're motivated to put the best forth, the best arguments that we have forward and to stick to our position a little bit, right? Now, sticking to the position that you have and never moving from it is a really bad idea. But not sticking to the position you have and just backing down the moment somebody says, I disagree with you, that's not a good idea either. Argument and reasoning is designed best when we're kind of in the middle. When you've got a group of people sitting around a table and they're all motivated to get their point of view across, then you get this tremendous variety of different arguments on the table, right, visible. Right? We're pulling out all the different kind of insights and information and thoughts that I've had and getting them out there because I want to get my point of view across. And then you have this kind of Darwinian process of natural selection where the weakest arguments very quickly get trashed. No, don't be stupid, that's not going to work, that's not going to work. But the strongest arguments survive, right? This is when it goes well. And we could talk about what the conditions are for that, but that's the kind of model of how disagreement should work. You end up with, you get very quickly to a much stronger answer than you would if you were just thinking yourself. Because all the arguments are thrown out onto the table and then you select the strongest one between you. It's a really interesting study of how Wikipedia editor pages get made. The political pages in particular, where in the US, it's incredibly polarized political culture. And so when they're editing the page, these teams of editors edit the page for, say, the Republican Party, the Democratic Bill Clinton, or Donald Trump, whatever it is, they get into a lot of arguments, right? And they kind of, they tend to sort automatically into different teams, kind of red team and the blue team on the page, and they're all kind of like arguing over every word and every comma. And a couple of scientists studied this process. They used kind of big data techniques, and they looked at it at scale. And essentially, they discovered that actually the pages in which the teams were more polarized were actually the higher quality pages on Wikipedia. Those teams of red and blue, they're all very convinced of their own point of view, and they were arguing over every word, but then they would find very high quality compromises. So they actually pushed up the quality of the page than if just one team dominated and said, we think this is the way it is. So why was that polarization productive when we know that in other contexts it's incredibly unproductive? Well, a couple of reasons. One is they had a very clear shared goal, right? These Wikipedia guys are all kind of slightly mad nerds, and the one thing they do agree on is we want Wikipedia to be as good as possible, right? And those spent hours and hours and hours, getting it right. So they had a shared goal, and number two, they had a kind of agreed process for disagreement. It's just the kind of set of rules for how to do edits on Wikipedia that everybody knows and everybody follows. And that housed that polarization, those very, very different ideological views, and it made the clash much more productive than it often is in other parts of the culture. So I think conflict and disagreement can make us much smarter, makes our reasoning capacity better, makes us think better, helps us get to better decisions. I also think it's very creative, right?